Before we begin, let's take a moment to highlight a core value we all share across our industry: safety. Just a few quick housekeeping notes. In the event of an emergency, please follow instructions from the staff and exit through the doors clearly marked with the exit sign and blinking right now. Kindly switch off or silence your mobile devices. Please note that this session is streamed and recorded. During the Q&A, simply raise your hand and a microphone will be brought to you. And for those active on social media, the official event hashtag is #EPCA59. We invite you to join the conversation. Finally, we would like to remind everyone of our EPCA do's and don'ts. As you're all aware, we must refrain from discussing any sensitive market information. Compliance with competition law is not just expected, it's one of EPCA's core values. We would like to thank our sponsor and media partners. Without you, this event is not possible. Thank you. And now, without further ado, let's begin.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the last session of this annual meeting. As you can tell, I'm not Cain. Unfortunately, he's unwell, so he can't be here this morning, but I'm Lydia Penal-Stoddart, the Senior Advisor at EPCA, liaising the work of the committees. I'm honoured to open this last session, and I'll be looking into some of the reflections on how far we've come with this committee, the Net Zero Transition Committee, and what lies ahead as we intensify our work in our shared mission of driving decarbonisation in the industry. When EPCA launched the Net Zero Committee last year, it was with a strong belief that meaningful change will require collaboration across the entire value chain, and we wanted to have a dual focus on both ambition and practicality. Fast forward today in Q3 2025, and we're seeing that work mature in ways that are both promising and quite demanding, as you'll see in the session today. A bit more about the Net Zero Transition Committee. We have two pillars that we work on. One is looking into future trends, so looking ahead and especially supporting SMEs in their transition to decarbonize. So we're just about to publish a set of 10 fact sheets and enablers where we aim to provide concise, practical insights into emerging technologies, where our ultimate goal is to inspire action, support strategy development, and strengthen competitiveness for companies of all sizes, and as I said, especially SMEs. Our second pillar revolves around developing a practical guide to help companies navigate the complex corporate sustainability reporting environment with all the standards, terms, and expectations that come with it. And that will be publishing a report in the near future. So today we've built a session based on these two pillars. I'll let Michiel from Guidehouse explain more, but the aim is to be interactive, so finish your coffees fast and wake up again because we will be expecting work from you. But we really hope that you're going to gain concrete, actionable insights from your peers, learn from each other, and share your successes and struggles within the confines of competition law, of course. And so with that, I'd like to hand over to Michiel, who's been supporting the work of this committee for the last few months. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Michiel Stork. Thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing me this place to talk you through a bit what we learned in a fact sheet, give some inspiration from that. But mainly to introduce the 5 breakout groups that we will have, where we ask you to also join in the thinking. Actively, don't worry. You will not be put on the spot if you don't have input to give. That's also fine, then we have high quality discussions with the others, hopefully. But let's maybe start by going to the... I actually need to do that. Let's start with asking you a question. So, of course, in the past days, we heard a lot about the competitiveness of the chemical industry and that is a challenge in Europe, and it is. We also know that society expects a move towards net zero, towards zero greenhouse gas emissions. And that is needed, of course, as well. Now, the question I have for you is, do you think that companies, chemical companies, can move towards net zero, can reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, while simultaneously, at the same time, improving their competitiveness? So do you think it's possible for companies, if you do, please raise your hands, do you think it's possible for companies to move towards net zero while at the same time improving competitiveness? I think that is about half of the hands. Of course, I need to ask the other question as well. Do you think it is not possible for companies to move towards net zero while simultaneously improving their competitiveness? If you think that, please raise your hand. That's less people, but still a couple of people. What I'll try to talk through and what we'll try to do in today's session is to give you some inspiration on where it might be possible to move towards net zero while simultaneously improving competitiveness. So for us, it's not two things that are necessarily always conflicting. The aim of this session is to show and discuss how these two goals can be united. Now the first question is, what evidence do we have, what is there out there that suggests that emission reduction can improve competitiveness? And I thought it would be nice to take a survey that SBTI did in 2018 amongst all sectors, amongst executives in all sectors, to see what they thought would be the benefits of setting science-based targets. And Science-Based Targets is an NGO initiative that validates whether greenhouse gas emission reduction targets are in line with 1.5 degrees or in line with the Paris Agreement. So it's for me kind of a proxy what the benefits are of reducing emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. And their first finding was that 79% of the executives surveyed said in 2018 that it improved brand reputation. Now you might say, but Michiel, that was in 2018 and we are now in 2025. So I also looked for a study that was more recent, and Accenture reported this year in a study based on a survey done in 2023 that 51% of consumers prefers to buy, is motivated to purchase eco-friendly. That is a different discussion still than that they want to pay for that, but let's get to that later. The second finding from the SBTI survey was investor confidence. 52% of the executive surveys indicated that investor confidence was boosted because of joining SBTI, so because of these validated emission reduction targets. Again, you might say, but this is older data, and this is not for the chemical sector, but this year BCG did a survey amongst, published a study aimed at the chemical sector, and their conclusion was that for success, a focus on innovation and sustainability-based differentiation was also contributing and helping. The final point I want to take out of these 6 reasons is competitive edge. 55% of the surveyed executives in SBTI said that having validated SBTI targets would give a competitive edge. Again, recently in that Accenture study from 2025, it was found that the projection for growth was 4.5 times bigger for sustainability-related chemicals than for conventional chemicals. And to place it a bit in context, until now, globally, a little bit more than 350 chemical companies have validated science-based targets or have indicated that they will submit these. Back to the fact sheets that Lydia already mentioned and that will soon be published. Basically what we were asked is, can you help us making fact sheets for 10 technology options, technology trends that help SMEs, maybe people with a little bit less time, but help them to see what is out there and what trends we see for decarbonization options, for emission reduction options. So we made 10, and we had in mind that they needed to be understandable for an engineer, but also for a business developer or a CEO, and needed to be useful for all of them. Some findings, I'm not going to make this very technical, but there's a fact sheet about heat integration, and that basically says heat integration can often be done economic with current energy prices. There's new heat exchangers, innovative heat exchangers that increase the heat exchange. We had a fact sheet on the energy savings that are possible with separation. New technologies enable more savings. Distillation, which is already used for many decades. Distillation can also be done much more energy efficiently. And actually that's something that Daniel will discuss with Gert in his breakout group later in this morning. The third finding was that natural gas can of course be replaced by electricity with e-boilers or more efficiently with heat pumps. And if that's renewable electricity, then that eliminates the CO2 emissions. Companies can also buy renewable electricity rather than grid electricity on the wholesale market in advance with the power purchase agreement. You then have renewable electricity, but you also hedge your future electricity cost. Natural gas can be replaced by green or blue hydrogen as a zero-emission fuel, and Jan Maarten Riemeyer will address that in his breakout group later. Natural gas can be replaced by biogas, biomethane, and virgin fossil feedstocks can be replaced either by chemical recycling or by bio-based feedstocks, which Lena will cover in her breakout group. Or by CO2 as a feedstock, where you capture CO2 from a process and apply it as feedstock in another process. And finally, that CO2 can be captured and stored under the ground, which can be done with investment from the chemical company itself, from you yourself, but also increasingly is offered as a service, where the capex comes from another company. In all of this, it is important that you take a holistic approach with your full company, not just sustainability people, not just the plants. So obviously the fact sheets have in mind your company and how you can reduce your emissions there. But actually over the value chain, a lot of the emissions, often the majority of the emissions are from the supply chain, are the emissions that were needed to make the goods that you purchase. And Norbert in his breakout group will discuss what can be done to reduce these. And then finally, of course, your clients and the products they buy. For your clients, the same benefits to reduce their emissions apply as for you. Many already have set targets. They need to comply and make these targets as well. For them, their upstream emissions, including your emissions, are relevant as well. So the consequence of that is that it's relevant to also include your sales force, your account managers in the greenhouse gas emission plan, and make sure that they have the right discussion with your customers, where they also stress the value of more sustainable products. So all in all, you include procurement, you include sustainability, you include the plants, you include R&D, you include the business developers, you include sales. It is an effort for the full company. Now, I would be a little bit too optimistic if I would say that all these measures are already economically attractive. So, first of all, for some measures to be attractive, there is a need for policy changes. EPSA is not about lobbying for policies, and the setup of today is also not to discuss how policies could change. What we have in mind today is how can, in the current setting, what is it that you can already do? How can you already take steps and be successful for that what is possible? And there policies play a role as well. First of all, because you can look for incentives like subsidies or more sustainable production. Secondly, because some policies lead to a cost increase for conventional production like emission trading. Of course, that can also have consequences for the competitiveness. But it does impact the difference in production costs between conventional and sustainable production. And thirdly, market pool policies creating market demand. So I think a well-known example is the upcoming legislation that requires packaging producers to include a certain minimum percentage of recycled content in their packaging. That obviously increases the demand and thus the business case for recycled feedstocks and making plastics based on recycling. So factor in the policy impact. Secondly, assessing the value proposition of sustainable products to customers, exploring the opportunities for differentiated offerings based on individual company strategy and market demand. So here, the question is, if your customer has set targets to reduce their value chain emissions, including your emissions, or if they have set a target on switching fully to bio-based materials or not using virgin fossil-based feedstocks anymore, all of that means that there's a value for your customer if you offer that, and that is something to be explored in the sales process. Finally, applying new business models. So, for example, the fertilizer industry has many years ago made the switch from just delivering tons to delivering fertilizing functionalities. Drones fly over the fields, map how much fertilizer is needed where, and rather than delivering tons of fertilizers, they deliver the fertilization functionality. Applying new business models, and Rafael will address that in his breakout group with you. To close it off, only an integrated approach will allow you to deliver net zero while improving competitiveness. And often that starts with setting targets, and most of you have targets on greenhouse gas emission reduction. It is about collaborating with partners in the value chain and securing new value chains, collaborating with recyclers to make sure that you get the right stream for chemical recycling, collaborating with hydrogen providers, if you want to use hydrogen, with the infrastructure providers, logistics, we heard yesterday, to secure new value chains. Joining industry alliances, so for example, Together for Sustainability has published guidelines on how to calculate the product carbon footprint, so how to calculate the amount of CO2 emissions that were needed to make the product. And they also have a platform, a software platform, to facilitate the exchange of these values. If you find measures that are attractive, implement them. If you find measures that are not or not yet attractive, try to improve the business case when needed. Basically, I discussed that in when talking through the previous slide, but maybe one addition. Obviously, you can also choose whether to invest or to go for OPEX by procuring. And we had a lot of discussions with the Net Zero Committee when preparing the fact sheet about this topic. If you want to go bio-based, you don't necessarily need to immediately invest in converting the biomass yourself to the chemicals. You can also buy bio-based chemicals first. See how it goes, see whether you can make the business case, and if so, then invest potentially in the process yourself. Collaborating over the full value chain to capture the value in the full value chain. Innovate and innovate smarter. And finally, substantiate improvements. So if you made these improvements over the value chain, if your suppliers did, if you offer bio-based chemicals, make sure that you can substantiate it. So make sure that you can calculate your product carbon footprint, your LCAs, and that your sales force knows how to talk about it. That you have the appropriate labels or certification to prove the sustainability of your product, and that there is transparency on data. Digitization often helps there, a digital product passport as well. I think only if you do all 8 of these, you are en route to deliver net zero while improving your competitiveness, and you exploit the possibilities that are already there. And then hopefully with more policies, a more complete package of options will be possible. With that, I would like to ask the breakout group facilitators to one by one come to the stage to briefly, in 1 minute, introduce to you what they are going to discuss and to make you enthusiastic for the different breakout groups. And afterwards we will go into the breakout groups to discuss the different topics at hand. And first of all, I would like to introduce Lena Nordgren. Lena Nordgren is a public affairs and sustainability specialist at CECAP, where she leads advocacy and stakeholder engagement to advance fossil-free chemical solutions in Europe. Lena.
Should I then take this down here? This microphone?
Yes,
yeah,
please.
Okay. So, can you please change the slide for me?
Yes.
I don't think you can only look at me here. You don't have the picture of me as well. I think this is enough. Really nice to be here today. I represent a company where we're going to discuss today bio-based chemicals. And bio-based chemicals is already available today. And it's production in this site, for example, 24/7 a day, annually on this site, using biomass to produce platform chemicals. And by using bio-based chemicals, you can significantly reduce your carbon footprint. As shown on this graph here, the total CO2 emissions will actually come to a negative using ISO 14067 if you also include in your counting the biogenic uptake. So this is what we're going to discuss in my breakout groups, what is the value with bio-based chemicals, but also the challenges of using bio-based chemicals. So with bio-based chemicals, your customer can significantly reduce your carbon footprint.
Thank you. Then let's go to Daniel Zuidhof. Daniel is the Head of Process Development and Plant Support at Evonik's Next-Gen Technologies Division, leading the development and optimization of fluid processing technologies and providing strategic support to plant operations, driving innovation and efficiency across your production network. And you will be joined by, in the breakout group by Gert Leuden, who is the Senior Vice President of R&D Smart Materials, also at Evonik. Let's give you the floor. What are you going to do in your breakout group?
Thank you, Michiel. Good morning from me. So we want to talk to you, talk with you about the question, how can we achieve our goal of reducing CO2 emissions, Scope 1 and Scope 2, directly from our production processes? So the directly or indirectly generated CO2 emissions. Of course, we need an added value for the product. That's what Michiel already mentioned. But we want to focus on the other two questions. One is how to get started. We want to collect ideas with you, how to get started with the existing production, how can we assess it, generate ideas, rate it for potential, economic and CO2 reduction, and the effort. And the last question, or the second question, how can we realize these projects, not only for existing, but also for new production sites, so the bigger ones. So yeah, please be invited for that discussion. And if you don't trust us that it works, we have examples that we experience ourselves. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Then the next breakout group will be led by Rafael Cayuela Valencia, who is the Corporate Chief Economist and EMEAI Strategy Development Senior Director at Dow, where he leads the region's sustainable digital and growth transformation strategy. Rafael.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And yes, I think today you have, we wanted to share with you is today we have a lot of concerns sometimes about the role of sustainability. And some people might think, okay, sustainability, as we said, is the future or not? What is the competitive advantage? I just wanted to give you some reassurance about something that perhaps is known, but maybe not often verbalized. First of all, is that, as you saw, there is a lot of technological options. That's what you saw before. But if you look at from the very big picture, actually, sustainability is a huge growth opportunity. This is where the companies, the industries, the nations that advance sustainability will become the winners of the future. But when you go through the process, one of the problems with sustainability is that sustainability is very difficult to be monetized. And there is a reason for that. It's basically we are internalizing externalities, and it's very difficult to do that. However, the sense of urgency is there, and I just wanted to remind you one very important thing that perhaps you don't go through often. First of all is that as we decarbonize, we defossilize and circularize our industry, we transform other industries. So you want to move society from red coat to green coat, you need to transform construction, automotive, textiles, electronics. This is all about material science, decarbonization, defossilization, and circularity. The problem that we will tackle in my room, what is the business model that we still need to create to ensure the transition happens as fast as possible? Thank you.
Thank you. Then the next speaker is Norbert Maar. Norbert is Director of the Supplier CO2 Management Program at BASF. Together with the global BASF team, he is responsible for the development and implementation of CO2 measurement for procured raw materials and manages suppliers to establish baseline emission data. Norbert, what are you going to do?
Okay, no, good morning. Also warm welcome from my side. In my session, I will discuss with you the way how to obtain reliable product carbon footprint data, because we need to consider that when you talk about greenhouse gas reduction measures, you need to have a solid foundation of supplier-specific data. So I will share with you, let's say, the path which we decided to go to approach our suppliers. We talk about how to support them, but of course also how to work with other companies, and you already mentioned this in your introduction, to establish standards, because it's also important to find ways to create data which can be compared with. So we work on this, we approach the suppliers, we already received a lot of feedback, so more than 2,000 product carbon footprint data we received, we are using in our calculation, but we have now the solid foundation to make the next steps towards reducing greenhouse gas emission. Here we talked with our key suppliers working on reduction roadmaps, and I'm looking forward for the discussion in the breakout group with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Jan Maarten Riemeyer, who is director at Guidehouse, like me. His work spans the full life cycle of industrial climate actions, from digital emissions monitoring and forecasting to corporate carbon footprinting, science-based target setting, and the development of abatement roadmaps and implementation plans. Jan Maarten, what are you going to do?
Thank you, Michiel, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to this early morning session to discuss such an important topic. Defossilization, it is probably rather, with hydrogen. Are we ready? That's what we are going to discuss in my breakout session. We have a commitment, a joint commitment, I think, here in Europe, that we want to limit global warming and at the same time remain competitive with our industry, with the chemical industry. We also see that hydrogen will clearly play a role. Michiel mentioned it in the technology papers. It is one of the levers that is emerging. And you see on this map here, which is actually more or less a live map that shows the hydrogen economy of the future. So you see supply products of hydrogen, you see potential off-takers and demand, and you see the hydrogen network evolving across Europe. So there is momentum in the market, but I think most of you, many of us, still ask ourselves, are we really ready? Do we already receive the hydrogen at our sites, and how can we make it happen? And I invite you all to discuss with me in a minute. Thank you, Michiel.
Thank you. So let's go into the breakout groups. As you see, there are flip charts over there. They have a number, flip chart 1, 2, 3, 4 over here, and 5 over there. You see there's no chairs there, but if you, we encourage you to stand up, but if you want to take a seat, just take a chair and sit, just don't block safety exits. We do 2 rounds of 20 minutes. Where the breakout group moderators that you just saw give a brief introduction, a bit more elaborate than you heard now, and then it will be more a group discussion. We do that twice. The moderators of the breakout groups rotate, so you can just stay in the same place. And after that, we plenary share findings and close off this session and then the full conference. Let's tell you which breakout group you start in. I would ask you, these 2 rows, to go to flip chart number 1, together with Lena, who will help you getting there. So this is for breakout group 1. This is for breakout group 2. Please go over there to the flip chart. And with that, Daniel and Gert will help you. Everybody here, please go to breakout group number 3, which is over there, where Rafael is going to help you find a way. For you, I would ask you to go to breakout group number 4, which is over there, where Norbert will help you. And all the remaining, please follow Jan Maarten to flip chart number 5 over there. The topics will rotate later. news, obviously, is that you heard only 2 perspectives. So what we are going to do to close it off is ask the moderators of each of the groups to briefly share their learnings so that you benefit from all the perspectives that were generated. So if I could invite you to briefly take a seat so that you can hear all the perspectives, and then we close it off. And can I ask the moderators to come on stage? Are you ready already? Okay, so while some of the moderators are still finishing off and preparing, maybe Jani, I can already ask you, in your session about hydrogen, can you share in 2 minutes, I know the instruction was 1, but can you share in 2 minutes what you learned today, what you think is helpful to share?
I absolutely can. Thank you. We had very engaging discussions. We discussed 2 questions. In the last group, we discussed what actually do you need aligned internally and externally in order to make hydrogen reality in your companies. And in the first session, we discussed what would make for you hydrogen a viable solution. What do you need? So 2 very important questions, very, very broad questions. And in both sessions, actually, very important thing that came up is we need to get the infrastructure ready. We saw it already on my slide. Infrastructure is starting to evolve. The big transmission system is there. European hydrogen backbone is sketched. Also in different European member states. The hydrogen network is evolving. In Germany, we have the so-called Startnetz, so the Star grid, where we actually also already have the funding now available, but still, this is the start of the infrastructure, and many parts have not even have an FID. Sometimes first parts are starting to build, so that is happening. Very important thing, still infrastructure is needed. Next to infrastructure, it's of course the availability of hydrogen, security of supply. The chemical industry is a very energy intensive industry, and you will either, of course, use hydrogen as an energy carrier, but also as a feedstock. And if you have big production quantities, you need a stable supply. So that was also something that was very important, that we need to get ready. And then maybe one last thing that I think I want to mention that was not so, we talked about it, not so much in detail, but it's clarity about the different colors of hydrogen. And we talk renewable hydrogen, low carbon hydrogen, and basically the mix of it. So we will probably have a mix, at least in the transition period, of different hydrogen colors. But in order to talk about different colors of hydrogen, we also need to have a common understanding of what a color of hydrogen means.
Thank you, Jan Maarten.
That's for me.
That's for you. Let's go to the second group. Daniel, what is it that you learned? And please take the perspective when doing this. What do you think you learned that's also helpful and a recommendation for everybody participating to actually consider and to be inspired by? In 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'll try that. So first of all, I have to say I was very encouraged discussion on both sides. So thanks for that. I wasn't expecting that, so that was very good to see. So the first part was more about what can we do for our existing plants. And the conclusion and what I learned is we have the tools ready to make the small changes. We just need to approach it structured, have a good structure, good assessment, and then implement what we can implement, even without capex, so small things. We had the idea, why not gather all of the data, use AI to help us. That's definitely an option. That's not ready. And collaboration, don't forget the collaboration. If you're on a site somewhere and have partners using energy, why not collaborate and be efficient together? The second round was how to implement Scope 1 and Scope 2 reduction projects. And there was an intense discussion, starting from the world is changing. It's not a first priority anymore, but we need to be more realistic. So start with the realistic things. Don't change the world now, but do what you can do. As I said, the small steps. And two more things there. We probably are good at telling people what the problem is in the industry, what we can do, what we're useful, but we don't have the strong ambassadors to make the regulations that we need. That's a bigger topic and probably not part of EPCA now, but it's very important. And the last part. The last part, Europe is not Europe. So if we talk about Europe and we started in Spain and end up in Lithuania, that's completely different. So think about what you can do in the region you're in. So I think that's roughly what the discussion was.
Thank you very much. Then Lena, what is it that you learned about the business case for bio-based, the value of bio-based, the challenges, in 2 minutes, please.
I just need to have my picture of, if I can't see what Elena is holding up to me. We had really interesting discussions in both my groups. My second group was quite small, but we had very good discussions. Regarding bio-based and value, there was a lot of value lifted to using bio-based chemicals in your industry. One of the main topic that was lifted in the key insights is the emission reduction. That you, by using bio-based chemicals, can significantly reduce your CO2 emissions in your product. And also that you can avoid fossil CO2 cost. For example, CO2 taxes, ETS, if you use your chemical in scope 1 and 2, that you can reduce those costs. And finally, regarding value, also the marketing value, that you as a producer towards your consumer can market this and market it in a true transparent way, and that you are using something that will reduce their CO2 emissions in their scopes in, for example, science-based targets. So, and also one thing that I'd like to highlight, actually a fourth, is local production in Europe. That we can compete with imports from out of Europe by producing green bio-based chemicals in Europe instead. And then we had the challenges. We had a small group, but really good discussions. And there was actually 2 points that I think I'll take 3 key insights. One was, as a procurement, it's rarely you can highlight the CO2 reduction as higher as the price. If the price is lower in a more CO2 emitted chemical, it's hard to confirm that you can buy the one with less CO2 if it's more expensive. So that's one challenge, but it also combines it that the ones who are buying the product are usually not the sustainability personnel within the company. So the combination of educating buyers from the sustainability perspective is really important, so those who buy them understand why they should choose this and put the CO2 above just the price level. And then finally, isn't really a challenge, but more of a door opener that we saw is the brand owners. That brand owners take the first step and show the market that this is a way forward, that we get the brand owners to take these first initial steps to show the market this is possible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
With that, let's go to Norbert. What are your learnings on the engagement with suppliers?
Okay, first of all, also thank you for the engaged discussion. I think in our groups we are discussing 2 questions. The one was, what are the roadblocks? And the second one more the flip side, what are the benefits? And first of all, it's interesting to see that topics coming up on both sides with a different spin. To start with the roadblocks, and we had so many discussions we missed to do a prioritization, so please apologize if I'm now picking a few comments. Of course, one was around all these topics is linked to cost. So calculating, doing the calculation, sharing this with customers, and they're requesting this a prerequisite for business is coming with cost. So that's a potential roadblock. The other one is around simplification, tools, and a third is on training, education, which is still required to do. And I think one colleague made the comment about we need to believe in this, which is, of course, besides the process, another important topic to say, if there is no belief that this is the right thing to do, it will be challenging. Looking now to the opportunities coming out of this, the benefit, I think therefore a clear comment, and here we did the voting and the majority was around, if we have transparency along value chain, it helps us to set priorities, to define where we can put our efforts on, and at the end of the day also leading to innovation, really to ensuring that this lead to low product harm footprint for our customers. So from that angle, thank you. A lot of valuable information. I learned a lot, and giving back to you, Michiel.
Thank you. And then finally, Rafael, what is it that you learned about new business models? What happened in your groups? In 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. I bring my notes with me. Thank you very much for those joining me. So I want to be sure I capture that properly. So first of all, I think what I learned, that is not learned, but it's great confirmation, is point number one. Sustainability is the way to go, absolutely. There are some concerns that in Europe might not be the case, but it's actually the way to go. Second is we need new business models, absolutely. And then the question is, when you go for new business models, the question is where? I think has been discussions, we need to put some regulations to help us. The question is where? Supply side or demand side? Well, the realization is the supply side is already moving. Unfortunately, it's more on the demand side. And if you don't have demand side, you don't actually have enough supply. And this is what we have today, correct? Today we have circularity plants closing in Europe, net zero crackers put it on hold because there is not enough demand. So we need a demand side. The question is, who create these business models? And there are two things here, very important. Point number one, regulators, we need a level playing field. The level playing field has to be an economic playing field, a regulatory playing field. Europe is suffering for higher regulation. And actually, we need an environmental level playing field. But we need even more. What we think we need to create this business model is we as an industry need to work much more together, and we need to be trusted for policymakers, because policymakers don't know how to do, even if well-intended, they don't know how to do business models. So we need to work together to create these business models. This is the good news, is that we saw that this is happening. But then even if you put new business models, we need regulators to give science-based directions. We talk about bio, by the way, and one of the things that we were saying is that today we can reduce the cost of sustainability massively through innovation. Remember solar panels 20 years ago, they were much more expensive than today fossil fuels. Look at where they are today. If we put innovation to reduce the cost on chemicals solutions, we will do that. So we need to put massive amount of innovation, but into these solutions. But we also need to recognize that policymakers need to stop missing around technologies. They cannot select technologies. Because if they do that, also what they do is, like for instance in hydrogen or in bio, today you have bio goes today, for instance, for biofuels for cars. And the question is, what is the best use of biogenic content? Is that for SAF, for chemicals, or for fuels? Maybe it's chemicals. So if this is the case, stop wasting time, resources on things that they don't go. So the conclusion is that we need to be trusted. Industry has to work together to create the business models, and policymakers need to put more clarity, as well as the industry need to create integrity. We need to create a language where it's not, where everybody can understand what is the lower carbon footprint, and society can understand how to move that forward. I hope I summarized well what it was said, but it was very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rafael. And with that, I think we captured all the groups. I think we had engaging and interactive discussions. I hope you took away that maybe not everything is possible yet, but there are many things that you can already do, and where competitiveness and the journey towards net zero can go hand in hand. For more, I think next week the fact sheets that we made on these technologies will be published on the EPCA website. So please keep that, keep watching for that and download them and have a look. Thank you for your participation in this session. That kind of concludes this session, but not yet the conference, because for that I would like to invite Richard Rudek, President Ventures EMEAI at LyondellBasell, where he oversees the olefins business in Europe, and he is the president of LyondellBasell companies in France. And he has been elected as president of EPCA since June 2023. I would like to ask you to close off this whole event, and maybe also to announce where next year the event will be held. Richard.
Thank you for participating. I know it is the last session, and I'm very pleased to see the energy in the room, and it was very, very useful and encouraging. And for the presenters, thank you for what you did, presenting all those different options, but be aware there are much more people watching the replay of all those presentations. So I hope you have had a good 2025 EPCA meeting. The purpose of EPCA is a network, is to facilitate the networking, to facilitate the interactions. So I hope you enjoyed it. We had this year 2,500 people joining. It's a bit less than previous sessions. The last two we had about 3,000, and but again, having 80% of a normal attendance is showing the added values that EPCA is creating. So thank you for that. And I want to have a special thank you also to the EPCA team. Again, I said it in the introduction, it's a very, very small team, but very motivated team. So thank you. And I know not all of them are in the room right now, and they are hiding in the back, but thank you for your effort during the year. With that being said, we can move where we are going to meet next year. So I assume there will be yeah. So we will be meeting again in Vienna. We have been used to meet to alternate between Vienna and Berlin. We are very familiar with the setup. You are very familiar with the setup. And I think it's almost a guarantee for success. So next year will be Vienna. And you have the date from the 5th to the 8th of October. With that, thank you very much for your participation.